And that's what connects Radiohead to the Eagles. 1, 2, 5 of 6. Okay? And instead of going to the E minor, like Don Henley did, Tom York decided this is the song called Creep. I'm gonna make it sound weird and creepy. He goes to 4. Okay, welcome back to our lesson on secondary dominant chords and their function and harmony. And in part 1, I explained what is a secondary dominant chord and explained the 3 types of chords that can be a secondary dominant. And I went through and played examples of every secondary dominant you could have possible in the key of C. And I alluded to some popular music examples, and I wanted to separate it into 2 videos in case there's any copyright issues, because sometimes artists and bands don't want their music used as examples like this. So I was just trying to do that for respect, so that if somebody does pull this video down, that my first lesson doesn't get pulled down with it. So let's go into the second part, the applications, the less boring part. We already talked about the heavy theory. Go ahead, I'll link it to it up there if you missed it. So some examples: Desperado by the Eagles is a really good example of use of secondary dominance. I'll just play the verse. I'll try not to play the melody because I know they might strike it down. They did on another one of my videos. So, it starts with, it's in G. So it starts with a 1. And then we go to a G7, which is a 5 of 4. That B is the leading tone into the 4 chord. Okay? G7 is the 5 of C, right? So that's a 5-1 movement into C. So we have a 5 7 of 4 into another parallel minor chord, but that's a different topic. 1 to 6, G to E minor, to an A7. Okay, A7 or A, or however it is, I play A7, is a 5 of 5, or 2 major chord, you could call it, because we're in G, right? There's the 1, and the 2 should be minor, right? But instead we're playing a 2 major, a 5 of 5. A is the 5 of D, and it goes from A7, and it does resolve. So far he's resolved every tension. There's been a tension, resolution to the chord that your ear would expect. Okay, so later on in the verse of Desperado, it goes, okay, 5 of 6, a B major, okay, or B major, to E minor. So again, the same, we saw this in the lesson with the first lesson. We're just doing that tension is the D sharp is pulling us into that E minor. 3 should be minor because we should have a D natural, but instead we raise it to create that tension that suggests E minor. That's our leading tone, D sharp. I just picked that song because it has 3 different secondary dominants that all work like they're supposed to behave. They create a tension, and then there's the resolution. And you'll see that a lot in music, tension, resolution, tension, resolution. And it's a very interesting chord progression and a beautiful song because it does that. Now, composers can do other things. A good example is Radiohead with their song Creep. Okay, same movement we just saw in the Eagles. And that's what connects Radiohead to the Eagles. G to B major. Okay, 1, 2, 5 of 6. Okay, and instead of going to the E minor like Don Henley did, Tom York decided this is the song called Creep. I'm gonna make it sound weird and creepy. He goes to 4. So 1, 5 of 6, 4, and then he borrows that chord, which the Eagles actually also did. So in terms of secondary dominance, he's not giving you resolution. He's giving tension and then a trick. It's like a trick. It's like a deception of your ear. And that's what kind of fits with the subject matter, the song called Creep. It's kind of a jarring harmony. He goes from the 5 of 6 to 4. That is, a bit unexpected. Sexy Sadie by the Beatles is a great example of a 5 of 3 chord. Well, we'll do it also in G. Sexy Sadie, just yeah. Okay, and that's an example where he's going G to F sharp 7, which is the 7 major chord, or 5 of 3, 5 of B minor. Okay, 5 of 3 is not used as commonly, I've noticed. I just noticed in songs here and there that it's not used as frequently as 5 of 6 or 5 of 5 or 5 of 2. But because the 3 chord is a bit of a weaker chord, but it still gets its use, and that's an example of tension and resolution, just like we saw in the Eagles, the way it should work. Now, let's look at something. The song F You, Forget You by Cee-Lo Green, okay? It might sound like it's such a simple song, but the harmony is actually kind of complex. That's an example where, like in Radiohead, in Creep, he gives you the tension but no resolution, and it's similar in that way. But because he uses the 5 of 5 chord, it's a little bit happier. It suggests a Lydian mode a little bit in the harmony. And right, and I did perform this song, so check it out, and I'll link to it there. I think I've played all these songs on this channel. But anyways, he's going C, and the bass is doing some other stuff, and he's going to D7, 5/7 of 5, which should go to 5, should go to G in C. But instead it goes 1, 5/7 of 5, 4. So it's actually almost the same exact motion that Radiohead did in Creep, but we used a different secondary dominant. Radiohead went 1, 5 of 6 to 4. Right? And Cee-Lo went 1, 5 of 5, 4. But they both surprise you by hitting that 4 chord. It doesn't have to be 4. You could hit any other chord after it that's not the correct resolution, and it would still have that kind of jarring effect. And so in the Cee-Lo Green song case, I think it kind of just makes the whole song feel a little bit suspended and tense, which kind of matches the subject of what he's singing about, losing his lady and all that. And I wonder if he actually wrote that one. Anyways, George Harrison in My Sweet Lord, a very famous song, is a beautiful example of what I would call a delayed resolution. So, really want to see but it takes so long, my Lord. Let's look at that. Let's break that down. These last two examples, so far I haven't talked about diminished chords. It's not, as I said in the first lesson, diminished chords aren't seen as frequently in pop music, but I found a couple examples here in George Harrison and later in James Taylor. So he uses this chord, F sharp diminished. I really want to see you. He's going 1 to 6, 1 to 6. I want to see you, Lord. Then he hits a diminished. Takes so long, my Lord. Let's break it down. So he's hitting 1 on D. We're in the key of D. And the song is rotating around this 2-5 movement, but he comes to that 1-6 pattern, and then see you, Lord, on 1, but it's so long. And now that's the diminished. And he's using a full. I think he's using a full diminished 7. He's hitting the diminished on F sharp, which should suggest G. And if you look, it's kind of similar in structure to a D7 chord, without that flat 9 or whatever. Okay, so it looks very similar. It's the same kind of tension that would lead you to G. And in the key of D, D7 would be a 5 of 4, 5/7 of 4. Should lead you to the 4 chord, right? But where does he go? C, right? He doesn't go there. He goes to another tension, B7, which is 5 of 6. And then he does resolve it. That's how he gets back. Right, that's how he gets back to the E minor to A pattern, because the whole song's going. So it's a really beautiful and actually very technically complex way that he gets back to that E minor chord. Like I said, it's all about the journey from tonic to dominant and home. That's what we said in the first video. And how interesting is that journey? So this is a very interesting journey. 1 to 6, isn't that interesting? 1 to 6, 1 to 6. That's every song ever written. 7 diminished of 5. I'm sorry, 7 diminished of 4. To, it's hard to compute some of these. To 5/7 of 2. I said 6 earlier. 5/7 5/7 of 2 to 2. 7 diminished of 4 to 5/7 of 2 to 2 is a much more interesting way, and it's kind of the trademark signature of the song. It's what kind of makes it very unique. Incidentally, I think he lost a plagiarism case for that song where he had actually still borrowed it inadvertently from a female singing group that I can't remember the name of now, but he lost a lawsuit. But that song didn't contain that movement, but he still lost a lawsuit. So, but that's an example of, I would call that delayed resolution. So it creates a tension, creates another tension, right? And then a resolution. Those are the kind of genius things that once you're really comfortable with this concept and have memorized and gotten very familiar with the sound of secondary dominants and applied them a lot, that you can start to do in your own songs to make them stand out as something just different. Every song you hear in your life is 1, 5, 6, 4, whatever. This is a way to make your songs a little special gravy, a little special sauce, and spice things up. Make it you. The last example I want to talk about, James Taylor uses 2 diminished chords. One resolves and one doesn't. So let's see if I can pull this off on piano because it's on guitar. Very similar to the George Harrison thing. He's kind of going on this 2/5 thing. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. There's our tension, okay? So he's going on that 2/5, 2/5, just like George Harrison in My Sweet Lord. Hallelujah, right? But then what he's doing different, he's going, now I got the George Harrison one in my head. What James Taylor's doing, he's going to that A sharp diminished to B minor. So that would be the 7 diminished of 6. If we look at the key of D, right, this A sharp shouldn't be in there. And actually, if we were to build it as a 7 chord, it would be an F sharp 7 chord. So it would be a major 3 chord. So that's the way to think of that diminished tension. It takes us to the Aeolian mode, or the minor mode. And so it kind of has a sad sound, right? So the other place that he uses that is in the chorus to kind of create some more tension. So he's created this tension and resolution, but then he's going to create another tension. So I'll just play it for you. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Do what I say. Shower. Okay, so you saw that he played the diminished chord there. Tension, resolution. Do what I say. Another tension, and that's the same chord that George Harrison used. 7 diminished of 4. Should resolve to G. But instead of doing that George Harrison trick, he just skips that and goes back to the 2. Okay, back to the E minor, and so that doesn't resolve the tension. If he had gone to the B, that would have kind of resolved the tension. But so he had one where he do what I say, shower the people you love. 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, diminish to 6, diminish, that should go to 4, instead it goes to 2. And he gets away with that because the 2 and the 4 chord function very similarly in diatonic harmony. But it creates a false expectation of this 4 chord, and he hits you with a 2 minor 7 chord. So I thought it was good to go through some examples to see that this isn't all just like boring stuff. This is used everywhere. It really opened my eyes and ears when I learned this. It was kind of like an aha moment, like, wow, a lot of songs use this, like, the Beatles, All You Need Is Love. Once you've learned this method, it's very eye-opening. You start to hear secondary dominants everywhere, and familiar songs that you knew how to play, all of a sudden you understand why they sound the way they sound, how the writer or composer came up with that chord selection, and why it makes you feel sad or happy or things resolved, or why it makes you feel like things are unresolved. And this is the way that composers and songwriters use. It's a tool in your toolbox. This is a way that you can kind of spice up your chord progressions, bring in some chromatic harmony, put some notes from outside the key. That lets you write more interesting melodies on top of those chords, and that makes it sound more unique. A song that can stand out today really has a better chance of doing well, I think, because so many songs today use the same 3 or 4 chords over and over and over and over. And doing, the Beatles use this a lot. Go read through some of the Beatles sheet music, and I highly encourage you to chart songs out. This is 1, this is 2, this is 6, this is 5 of 7, whatever. You'll gain so much from just taking your favorite songs and writing out the numbers associated with them, and then you'll take that, and then that will inform your own songwriting and how to use some of these tricks, and you start to recognize them immediately. If someone plays a 5 of 2, I immediately hear it. I immediately hear, oh, that's a major 2. Oh, that's a 5 of 5. Whereas if they're going to a standard 2, minor 2, I can hear that. So you hear those subtle differences, but it makes all the difference in your composition. And it really, sometimes it's like the main emotional point of the song, like in Creep. That change was Creep without that change. What's Desperado without that resolution? Similarly, what's Creep without the tension? What's Desperado without the resolution there? It doesn't hit you in the heart the same way. This has been my lesson about secondary dominance. I hope you enjoyed it. It was very long. My name's Yusif. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what other kind of topics you would like to hear, and what are some songs where you've seen secondary dominant chords that are interesting to you. Do you use them in your own songwriting? Let me know. I want to hear from you.